Hey guys, it's Libby and welcome to the first proper episode of Soliloweek, where I spend a week looking at each of Hamlet's soliloquies and explain to you what they literally mean. Now, these videos do have some supplemental materials. You will find in the description a link to a Google Doc where I have written out all of the soliloquies and taken them out of verse. And I've put them into prose form because the verse can be kind of distracting. It's already difficult to tell where the breaks are in the thoughts, and having line breaks on top of that, which are a bit sporadic in a lot of the soliloquies because Hamlet's often quite emotional, just makes it even harder to figure out. Now, it is important to remember that publishers in the early modern period took a lot of liberties with punctuation and sort of doing whatever they thought was logical. So don't put too much investment in where there is a comma as opposed to a period or a dash. That's not really what Shakespeare doesn't really care what you do with those different types of pauses. So I'll start by giving you a little bit of context in case you don't remember exactly where this occurs in the play, and then I'm going to read the speech, making it very clear what the separate ideas are. And then we'll talk about what it all means. So this occurs in Act 1, Scene 2. Hamlet is alone on stage after the entire court has exited. Claudius was doing a lot of sort of state management stuff. Hamlet is there being a total goth, and his mother Gertrude asks him to brighten up a little bit, and he says, no, not gonna do that, I'm gonna keep being sad. So what do we know at this point in the play? It's really important to keep track of this because we all already know the whole story of Hamlet, and so when we're reading it and we want to sort of get an idea of what it would have been like for the original audience, we don't want to let the knowledge of the ending infect earlier scenes. So we, the audience, know from scene 1 that there is a ghost on the prowl in Denmark who appears to be the ghost of the dead king. We, now meaning everyone in the audience and on stage, know that Claudius, the brother of the old king, is now the new king and that he has married his widowed sister-in-law. Not totally clear why Hamlet didn't become king, but we know that most people at court have gotten over the death of the old king, but Hamlet clearly has not. And then what we are going to learn in this speech that nobody else on stage knows is that Hamlet has this additional grief on top of mourning for his father. He's also really upset that his mother has betrayed his father by getting remarried so soon. At this point, nobody knows that Claudius is the murderer, except for Claudius himself and, I guess, the ghost. Nobody in Act 2 knows that there even is a ghost, and we certainly don't know anything about any characters potentially going mad. So, with that in mind, let's read the speech. Feel free to follow along in the Google Doc, and I'm going to not perform it. I'm just going to read you the sentences very distinctly. So we've got, "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. O God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fiant, O fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed, things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this, but 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2, so excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven, visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth, must I remember? Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month, let me not think on it, frailty, thy name is woman, a little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body, like Niobe, all tears, why she, even she, O God, a beast that wants discourse of reason, would have mourned longer. Married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salts of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married. O most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue." So now we're going to take a look at each piece individually as I have broken it down, as opposed to how it was broken down in the verse, and figure out what exactly everything means. So we open with, oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Hamlet is saying, I wish my body would melt and become liquid. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. The everlasting is God. Canon here is not a weapon of war, but like the religious law, the church canon. And then self-slaughter, we have our first reference to suicide. Some people have criticized the to be or not to be speech, saying that it's weird for Hamlet to be contemplating suicide at this point in the play, but it is at least not a totally novel concept at that point. Hamlet has already said in his very first soliloquy, like, I am seriously considering killing myself, and the only thing stopping me is the fact that I would go to hell. Then we get the ejaculation, oh God, and this is where the meter breaks. The rest of the scene had been in a pretty nice iambic pentameter. The first couple lines of the soliloquy Hamlet manages to do in iambic pentameter, but then with the oh God, we throw the meter out the window. No holds barred, anything could happen in the rest of the soliloquy in terms of the meter. And of course, remember, when characters break meter, it's a sign that they are very emotional. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. I think that one's pretty straightforward. And then we have fiant, oh, phi. Phi doesn't really have a specific meaning. It's an exclamation used to express outrage or occasionally disgust. If I was asked to rewrite this speech not using any Jacobean English, I would probably change phi to fuck. So instead of fiance, oh phi, I would say fuck it, oh fuck. Though do keep in mind that phi doesn't have anywhere near the same level of taboo placed on it that fuck does. Then we move on to, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. 'Tis is short contraction of it, and the it here is the world, which he referred to before he came out with O-Fi. So 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. My Yale edition informs me that merely here means entirely. That seems a bit strange, but I'll go with it. So only bad things possess the world, and they possess it entirely. That it should come to this. Now, here, we don't know what the antecedents of this sentence are. That it should come to this. We've got an it and we've got a this. We maybe have some idea what the this is. It has something to do with the scene that has just been unfolding. We don't know what the thing that was happening before that has now come to this is. And so this is where I want to remind you of that thing I brought up in the introduction, which is that this type of writing, the type of writing that Shakespeare is using in the soliloquies, is really meant to show how thought processes work as opposed to how speech works. So if we were speaking to another person who we wanted to understand our thoughts, we would first tell them what the initial situation was and then say, oh, it has come to this. But that's not how your brain works. First, you feel the exasperation, and then you reflect on what the original situation was. So Hamlet will introduce us to the situation a little bit. First, he's going to have some very short sentences where we're sort of jumping from one idea to another. So we start with the idea, but 2 months dead. He doesn't tell us that he's talking about his father, but clearly he's talking about his father. Then he interrupts himself, saying, nay, not so much, not two. Then we go back to the idea of the king, the subject of this but 2 months dead. We're finally going to explain him here. So excellent a king that was to this, we're meant to understand he's talking about Claudius, Hyperion to a satyr. Hyperion is the Greek god of the sun. He's all glittering and celestial. And then a satyr is a follower of Dionysus. They're sort of short, ugly, goat-legged men known for their lasciviousness. So loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. So Hamlet is trying to have this positive memory of his father, but in doing that, his mother also shows up in the memory, and he's really not too pleased with her right now. So he cuts off the memory, saying, heaven and earth must I remember. And then he goes and focuses on his mother. And we get a really long sentence full of interjections and classical metaphors, but really what the key pieces of the sentence are, the only things that you grammatically need in order to understand what's going on, are why she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month she married, and he repeats that, within a month she married. You can kind of just cut out all the stuff in between, but that's not what your brain does. Your brain sort of has one big thought going along, but then it dips down into other little ideas as it's moving. So Hamlet interrupts himself again with, "Let me not think on it. I really don't want to remember this, but I'm still doing it." Then the famous line, "Frailty, thy name is woman." And then he compares her to Niobe. This is another classical reference, so we're definitely getting an idea that Hamlet is educated. Niobe was a woman who had lots of children, and she bragged that she had even more children than Leto. Leto was the mother of Apollo and Artemis by Zeus. Apollo and Artemis heard that she was talking trash about their mom, and they were not too pleased with this, so they went and shot down all of her children with arrows. And so Niobe is referred to when one talks about weeping a lot because she cried constantly at the death of her children. She wept so much that Zeus took pity on her and turned her to stone. So Hamlet has been trying to say what it is that has happened within a month, but the thought is so distressing to him that he cannot even say the words, and so he keeps interrupting himself. So finally, after 3 interruptions, he gets to why she, even she, and then he goes off again on another interjection with, "O God, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer." And then he can finally say, "Married with mine uncle." But he doesn't repeat the she again. So he can't even couple the subject and the predicate of this sentence. Now we're gonna get our third classical allusion of the sentence. "My uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules." Thank you, Disney. I do not have to explain who Hercules is to people. And then he repeats what he was saying earlier, and he can do it a little bit more tightly this time. "Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her gullet eye." So, we're getting a little bit more explanation of what was occurring during this month. She married. And now we're going to get one final emotional interjection. "Oh, most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets." And then our final sentence, "It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue." And so here we get a little taste of one of the major themes of the play, my favorite theme of the play, and so one that I'm not going to shut up about when I finally get to the main video, and that is performance versus reality. And is everything performance, and good versus bad performance, and all that stuff. So Hamlet is saying he must hold his tongue, he must put on a performance of acceptance or obedience, and that this is going to break his heart. So Hamlet's in a very sad, lonely place right now. We knew he was sad before, now we know he's extra sad. But Shakespeare takes pity on him, and at this point in the play, Horatio enters. Horatio is Hamlet's very good friend from school. He's kind of the only person Hamlet fully trusts in the play, and Horatio and the guards with him are going to bring some maybe not comforting news, but certainly interesting news. So now that we have all of the context and meaning sorted out, let's read it one more time. This time I'm going to be reading it from the original text with the verse, so I will try to emphasize that a bit more. "Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon 'gainst self-slaughter. O God, God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fiant, oh fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this, but 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2, so excellent a king as was to this Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven, visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth must I remember. Why she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet within a month, Let me not think on't frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body like Niobe, all tears. Why she, oh God, a beast that wants discourse of reason would have mourned longer, married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her gullet eyes, she married. O most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. Okay, thank you for letting me indulge in some acting for a little bit there. If you have any questions about this speech, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you have questions about the play Hamlet in general, you can also leave them in the comments. I may not answer them if they require a lengthy answer, but I may incorporate them into the Hamlet video, which I have not filmed yet, so fire away.